Let's wait for them to come back. Meanwhile, I'll just give you a brief intro before the live starts, because I don't want to keep you guys waiting. What topic are we discussing today? We are discussing defense. In the context of all the wars that are happening in the world, and also in the context of the Operation Sindhu, or in general, the larger theme of defense indigenization, we'll be talking about this defense industry and the need for creating a indigenous, that is made in India, defense industry. So when you're talking about defense, what are the things that you should focus on? Broadly speaking, land, water, air, cyberspace. Okay, the new frontier will be cyberspace. So when you are dealing with this multiple domains in the arena of defense, till now what was happening? We were depending on some foreign power. So on land we have multiple weapons in our arsenal. Within that weapon systems, we will be dealing with missiles and defense systems also. When you're talking about water, the various kinds of aircraft carriers, submarines, all the weapons that use sea as the frontier for warfare. You have the torpedoes that are launched. All this will create the arsenal for our navy. When you're talking about our air force, the most important thing is fighter jet. Okay. How do you produce this fighter jet? Till now we were dependent on foreign technology. Which foreign players are involved in the defense market? Majorly Soviet Union, that is Russia. In the recent times, we have had Rafale deal with France. Now, many other players are trying to enter into this space, but primarily the focus of Indian government is to encourage the local players. In this context, we will be looking at the defense layout. So, a majority of that money is routed towards defense production, indigenous defense production. And major complaint with the defense layouts in the budget was that, let's say if 100 rupees is going to the defense budget, out of that majority was going in pensions. So no money was left for upgradation of our weapons. And even if capital was allocated for weapons, most of that was going away for procurement from some other player, foreign player. Same is the case with ships, fighter jets, and also aircraft carriers. Small ships like corvettes, larger ships like aircraft carriers. In all those arena, we were dependent on some foreign players. But in the last 1-2 decades, indigenization as a theme started increasing. The flagship feature for each of the domain here, you will be asked. For example, when you are dealing with land-based weapons, what are the major things that you have to think of? Missiles. So in that context, you will be talking about I'm waiting for the person to come, so I'm just giving a quick overview before we start. In the context of the land weapon systems, we'll be dealing with the integrated guided missile program right from 1980s, where our ex-president, Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam, was handling that entire project. After that, the range of the missiles kept on increasing. Which missiles? Here, we are discussing two categories of missiles, namely ballistic missile and the cruise missile. What is the difference between a ballistic missile and a cruise missile? So when you're talking about a ballistic missile, you are taking the help of gravity. You just launch it and wait for it to strike. But when you're talking about cruise missile, you are fixing a target, it will have a tracker. So a tracker will have a sensor. Questions can be asked on what are the technologies involved in this trackers and sensors. That is one way. Whether they are produced by India or not. That is second set of questions. Then you can expect questions on the range of the ballistic missiles. Will they enter into outer space? Are they supposed to enter into outer space? If yes, why? If not, why? These are the kind of questions you can expect. In the context of the Operation Sindoor, where are also the surgical strikes, which is a new strategic technique to harm the enemy assets without causing any civilian damage. Whether it is in 2016, 2019 or the recent Operation Sindoor, we were focusing on the precision technologies involved for hitting the right spot. What kind of questions can you expect there? What are the weapons? What are the defense systems? Who produced it? Did we export any of these missiles to other countries? If yes, what are those missiles? This will be the next set of questions. Now, when it comes to Navy, this is a broad overview. Of course, within the land-based weapons systems, you also have the defense systems, which will be decoding in detail later. The other half of the updates with respect to sea is the Navy part. When you're dealing with the Navy, on surface, below the surface. Categorize it like this. On surface, below the surface. Okay. So below the surface, you have two needs. One is survey, reconnaissance submarines. And then you have attack submarines. Even for attacking, there are two kinds of submarines broadly based on the propulsion mechanism. They can either be propelled by nuclear power or your conventional fuels like diesel. So that is one way of classification. How many of them are produced from outside? I mean, procured from outside. How many of them are produced within the country? What is the name of the project? What are the various classes of submarines? This can be the various categories of questions in the submarines. Now, since the world is in conflict and you have seen many weapon systems in use, a comparative based study is ideal in these times. And whenever you get questions on any drones, that completely is a new vertical. It will, come under a mix of land and air. So this is a kind of a hybrid variety now. So when you are dealing with this kind of a hybrid variety, there are ethical challenges. Are there any rules? Is there any regulatory body that deals with these drones? What are the various categories of drones? Which country has more powerful drones? In the context of the ongoing Iran-Iraq war, or in the context of the Russia-Ukraine war or Operation Sindoor, drones are now the new weapons that will create a lot of havoc with minimal human intervention. On the top of it, there is now a discussion of AI-based autonomous weapons, which is a threat as well as a ethical issue. In this context, we will be discussing some initiatives taken in the global space. Now, when you are talking about, finally, we are done with land, sea, air. When you are talking in terms of air, the biggest news for Air Force would be the fighter jets. Apart from the fighter jets, you also have integrated command structures which will facilitate the coordination between all this, and there are specific integrations onto the existing fighter jets to safeguard our own planes. What is the technology used there? How are we protecting them? What scientific principle you are using to protect them? What is the application of your physics like sound waves and light waves? How laser can be used? How sensors work? All of this will together constitute the science and tech syllabus. And when you are dealing with this in a single shot, you can club both prelims and mains preparation. Okay, so we will begin by the overarching theme. We will first start drawing some boundaries on how to deal with the defense sector. So today in the class we will be combining both mains and prelims. Okay, so in this single discussion you can combine everything. Till the PPT is displayed, I will be dictating some points. Have a look at it. Okay. So what is the need of the present defense sector? Atmanirbharta. So objective. What do you mean by Atmanirbharta? Self-reliance. We don't want to depend on any foreign power when it comes to our defense sector. So this is the overarching objective. In what all technologies do we have capabilities? Wherever we don't have technologies and capabilities, we will be taking there. So your prelims and mains preparation should be like an audit of this entire agenda. Where all do we have our strength? Where we have our weaknesses? How to overcome them? Once you understand it like a need of our country, you will be able to appreciate the nuances better. UPSC rarely gets into the technical details, just understand the broader principles of how they work. Okay, so please note down these points because this can be like a short note when you are revising. Consider this single note that you are taking as a copy that you can retain for your mains answer sheet also. Finally, 1-page revision for defense sector. So the keywords based, okay? If you want to write an intro for your mains using the keywords, this is how I want you to write. India's defense sector is evolving. India's defense sector is evolving from import dependency to strategic self-sufficiency. If this is treated like a objective that India should attain, the second question we should be asking is in which all domains? Like we discussed, land, water, air. What are our existing capabilities? What new capabilities do we need? And where will we need them? Okay. What are the steps taken? Comprehensively, if you do all of this, both your prelims and mains preparation will be over. Yeah. Now, these are the, if you take a look at this single snapshot, the entire problems of the defense industry and the solutions will be discussed comprehensively. This can serve like your mains answer revision sheet also. So we will look at each one of them. What is the overarching need? Like I told you, Atmanirbharta. What should we have for increasing our self-reliance? First thing is budgetary allocation. Are we having that budgetary allocation? Yes. This is where you can quote the latest budget figures. When you are writing answers in science and tech also, there is an element of economy. The reason why in GS3, lot of students are scoring poor marks, they are not able to quote the latest figures. They are not able to substantiate. So, including these figures will be extremely important. There is a 15.19% hike from the previous year in defense allocation, budget allocation. And most of it is going towards the capital expenditure. So, one more update. After you allocate the budget, you should start execution. The biggest roadblock in execution for our armed forces was the tri-service coordination. Army, Navy and Air Force, if they can work together, the impact they can create is multifold. To solve this problem, you have a integrated command structure and Chief of Defense Staff. So this is what you should know. It is in this context, 2 new weapons were added. Rudra brigades and drone units, Ashni. You will get the details of the weapons and the complete armed forces arsenal. The list of weapons that our armed forces will have, you will get a list of that. But firstly, let's focus on the logic of organizing our notes. You first have a budget outlay, then you have a organizational restructuring, then you will focus on the needs of our country. These are current affair updates. When you're dealing with Army, Navy and Air Force, in all those areas, one major upgrade that is needed is the nuclear weapon that can be embedded onto those existing systems. The so-called nuclear triad. Now we have achieved that. INS Aridaman, sea-based mobile assets of nuclear weapons. You will also have the nuclear-enabled Agni missile, which has a capability to hit a very long range. So this objective is attained. Now, second, when you are talking about the indigenous weapon systems, indigenous aircraft, this was also a previous year question, like in 24 or 23, I don't remember exactly. First generation, second generation, third, fourth, fifth. A classification of these fighter jets and where does India stand? We will have a discussion on that. Next up, when you're talking about the Navy, there are certain important projects. You need to know the upgrades on those projects. So we will just have a brief intro in today's class. You will get this PDF, and after you read the basic, we will have a elaborate scientific principles behind this in the next upcoming class. Okay. Now when you're dealing with the naval indigenization, what is the method of classification? Above the, on the sea surface, below the sea surface. Here you're talking about various submarines and then smaller ships like stealth frigates. They're supposed to move very quickly. And then you have the larger ships which will carry your aircrafts, weapons, and all the necessary accessories. Till now, we were depending on some foreign countries. Now we want to create our own. So this is one theme that will be extremely important. So in the entire defense industry, Navy is one area where India progressed much quickly when compared to the other sectors. It is not that other sectors did not see as much growth. It's just that the quantum leap that Navy took, when you compare it with the others, they are slightly ahead. Now, what other themes you can expect in current affairs apart from this? So now we are seeing intermix of themes. We saw how cyberspace is a new frontier of warfare. Imagine a scenario where your mobile is hacked, or imagine a scenario where RBI's network is hacked, or our national electricity grid, which is running on some software. If these kind of national strategic assets are hacked, we are literally crippled. So cyberspace is the new frontier of warfare, and we have to develop capabilities in that direction also. That will be another theme. So in this context, Mission Sudarshan Chakra, this is one theme that you will be asked upon. What are these? We will see. But I'm first explaining the themes of our defense sector for this year. Next up, till now, defense is one sector where our government thought we shouldn't depend on any private player. As a result of this stance, private players found it extremely difficult to develop as an industry. Even if some order was placed, in executing that order and releasing the bills, huge delays were caused, forcing these companies to shut down or downsize their operations for a very long time. And this is in a way harmful for our own country's strategic needs, because our original need is Atmanirbharta in defense. When you don't trust our private players, what will happen to us? We will have to depend on foreign players. So this is one more theme. So the government wants to completely revamp this sector in such a way that we encourage the defense startups. What initiatives did the government take up? Who are the important players? Why are they given this important responsibility? That is one area of discussion. Okay. Next. Defense exports. This is one more theme. When you are talking about defense exports, and on the other hand, you are also talking about indigenization, it feels like a paradox. Here is where you should be very careful. Imagine there is a basket of goods. When you are exporting something and importing something, it doesn't mean we are doing export and import of the same things. When will we export something? When we have surplus capacity. When will we import something? When we don't have the ability. Ideally speaking, imports should be reduced. Exports should be increased. Right? If you want to make more money, there are two strategies that we can develop. Increase the quantity or increase the value. Would you prefer selling steel scrap or a rocket? Obviously a rocket, because it will generate much more revenue. You have to worry about quantity when you are dealing with this. You have to worry about quality when you are aiming for this. Till now, our defense exports are somewhere in the middle. We cannot say they are bad, we cannot say they are great. But we have come a very long way from not having any exports at all. What are the export destinations? What defense goods are we exporting? Is it done by private sector or government sector? If it is done by private sector, why aren't they supplying to Indian government? Why are we sending them out? These are the kind of questions that should pop up in your mind. We are not even going into the content yet in today's class, because the orientation when you are studying science and tech is very scattered. You want to go into the depth of the principles without understanding the trends. So let's just focus on those trends and then come to the specifics. The themes which are opportunities for India to grow, these are the themes. Okay? These are the themes where you can expect questions both in prelims and mains. Now, the other side of the coin. If you take the defense sector as a problem statement that needs to be solved, it is fair for UPSC to say, I want to know if you have an awareness of the problem of defense industry. I can ask a assertion reasoning based question there. I can ask technological capabilities based question, or I can simply ask awareness of the trend overall. For all of that also you should know this. What are our problems? First is historically how we are spending money in the defense sector. Most of it is going away in pensions. That is why in 2015 discussion started on the one rank one pension scheme. So if I will not go into the specifics. The end objective of that scheme is to rationalize the spending so that we have more money to spend on the capital expenditure. That is the first issue. That issue is still pending. We are still not happy with the amount of money dedicated for capital. But yet it is far better than where we have begun. That is the theme number one. Then the most urgent issue, fighter jets. We don't have enough of them. Immediate concern. Are we having any indigenous variety? Anyone? Tejas. So, light combat aircraft called Tejas. This can be a question. But that is not deployed yet completely, because there are still some problems with it. Our Air Force is not completely convinced with the quality produced. They cannot comprehensively replace the existing fleet. So that is one problem. You can expect a question there. Then you can expect a question on the governance mismatch. So couple of years ago, UPSC asked a question on the ranking, admiral, um, colonel. So I don't remember the exact details, but the architecture of governance in armed forces. That was one theme. If you are creating a tri-service architecture where you are combining all of them, there are issues that are discussed in the newspapers about the nomenclature one should get. There also one question can be asked. Then import dependency, specifically in very critical sectors. What are those sectors? If you want to push the ship forward or a aircraft forward, you need a engine for that. That engine and the technology that is behind that engine, scramjet, ramjet, etc. That is one area where you can expect a question. First of all, I'm just giving a broad overview, okay? Then when you are on the sea for propulsion, marine propulsion, what do you mean by propulsion? If the ship has to move forward, again there is an element of dependency on that. Of what use is a ship that can not move forward? Similarly, you cannot expect a flight to have a foreign engine. Then sensors. A couple of days ago, there was a problem with atomic clocks in our Naik. What is Naik? Desi GPS, which is only focusing on the Indian territory. The problem with atomic clocks will automatically lead to precision error. You can't have the exact location. That will defy the very purpose of its existence. Why is it happening? Those atomic clocks which are responsible for showing the exact location, they are malfunctioning. They are brought from Switzerland. That is one more problem. So everywhere we are gathering parts from here and there. Why can't we create our own industry? Where all should we create? If you don't understand the problem in which specific sectors, you won't be able to address this answer. So here in the context of the weapons which are causing this import bill, you will see largest arms importer tag given by an organization called CIPRI. That is one more area where you can expect a question. Okay, next. When you are dealing with the armed forces manpower, there is a recruitment issue. Okay. You wanted to have a old method for recruitment, but the government said that we will create a new method. What is that old method? What is that new method? We will have a discussion on that. Then infrastructure, in comparison to dominant powers like China, more specifically in the border regions, let's say in the Ladakh region, in that context, you can combine it with this one, the governance issues. There is an organization called the BRO, Border Road Organization. So that is in news constantly. The conflict between this multiple organizations and how to resolve them is another big headache for Defense Ministry. You can expect questions even there. Okay. Then the concept of gray zone cyber vulnerability, what we discussed. You don't know how to tackle the space where our life is intertwined with the cyber systems. For example, if your UPI is blocked today, you don't have cash on you, or power systems are hijacked, you're literally stranded in the middle of nowhere. What will you do? This kind of new possibilities and the gray areas where we are yet to figure out a complete solution, that is one more area where you can expect a question. So defense happens to be the most comprehensive issue that we can cover in the shortest possible time, and yet it can be the most confusing if you don't know the scope of what we are doing. The reason why I am just introducing the scope today is to give you some time to process what are the problem statements we are dealing with. And then come back to the specifics. Okay. If you look at this snapshot, you can simply write a mains answer. But it is difficult to write a good, mark a prelims question. So this single screenshot or this snapshot will help you write a very excellent mains answer. You have all the keywords needed. In the context of the Indian defense need of Atmanirbharta, examine the opportunities and the challenges that Indian government has. What steps can be taken in this context? Like the intro that I said, Indian defense sector is moving from import dependency to strategic self-reliance. In this context, there are some opportunities and challenges. Opportunities, challenges. Remedial measures, here you have. So, this is the set of measures that we can take. The problem with military is that they don't trust the civilians. And the PPP model will work only when that trust is created. The first point is the civil military fusion in terms of the defense labs, academia, industry, all the stakeholders. Next, acquisition. A question can be expected on the acquisition protocol. What is the mechanism of defense acquisition? How will you modernize it? What are the logistical codes available? What do you mean by logistical codes here? A unified code of conduct for administration. And then cyber defense, what will be the doctrine? If you have this single snapshot, you will get a question this year. Mark my words. Whatever content is available here will be good enough to score a top-notch mark in that specific answer in the defense sector. There is nothing beyond this. No other point will be there. So this is the overall picture of the defense industry. Clear? I wanted to take more, but because of the delay, we were not able to take. So in the subsequent classes, what we'll be doing is, in all this discussion we have had, we will discuss in such a way that both prelims and mains will be completed. So this will take roughly around 2 hours. Okay. So in the next 2 classes, the defense as a problem statement will be closed. Understood? Any doubts? What are all the things? Can we summarize once? What are all the things that you have to prepare for prelims and mains in defense? Firstly, understand the goal. What is the goal? Strategic Atmanirbharta in defense. Why? Because import dependency is crippling our security architecture. What do you need for this? Money. A discussion on the budget outlays and the trends therein. That is one area. 2. Where are we spending that money? That is one more area. After taking a decision on money, how are we working towards it? The governance part. After we decide on the governance, what are the tools available to us? Land, air, water. What are the existing mechanisms? What are the indigenous aspirations? What are the specific weapons that are created? If money is not enough, how else can we mobilize that money? The introduction of the concept towards PPP. Then we discussed the deep tech. What is the deep tech part? The integration of the cyber world with the physical world. AI based weapons and all those discussions. And then we are next dealing with the economic opportunities associated with the defense sector. So it is having a dual objective of revenue as well as strategic security. What are the problems here? These are the problems we'll be discussing. So this part will be less important for your prelims. This part will be more important. Okay? That's it for today's class. In the next class, we will be dealing with all of this comprehensively. Each one of them. See you.